Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to talk about a really impressive mod known as Legendary Characters, which adds in 20 legendary characters. You can see the list on screen right now, but that is mostly legendary heroes, which is something that the Total War Warhammer series desperately needs, and it's a massive collaboration by lots of well-known modders such as Stratovarius, Dead Baron, Not So Skelly Bones, Karma, Zoodad, 20KR, Orange Julives, and Paul Janan. I think this mod, until we start getting these characters officially, is just not going to leave my load order. So let's check them out. There's so many for so many different factions. It's actually really cool. So we're going to start off with Scarbrand, who has access to 2 legendary heroes and 1 legendary lord. These will all be available at the start, and keep in mind that the legendary heroes for all the factions being affected by this mod will have them at the very start. You won't be having to do a quest at the moment for them, though something like that may change in the future. I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up there. The first character we're going to talk about is the Skulltaker, whom we've covered in the past as he had his own independent mod, and he still does if you just want him. This is a powerhouse of a character. He's obviously very focused in melee combat because, well, you know, this is a Khorne character, but overall, his skills focus on making him just a better duelist. If you know Skulltaker's lore, you'll know that he's very good at taking out other characters. He's a fantastic fighter. He's stronger in sieges due to certain skills, and just generally, he's a frontline character. It's something that you already kind of are used to, and, well, these characters aren't really supposed to be very unique in their own sense. When we get them officially, he's going to be pretty much the same way, I imagine. The next character is Sylar Anfingrim, and this is a rather unique character in the Khorne roster. He was very popular back in the day. In fact, he still gets loads of model updates through all the different universes, which I think is really impressive. He is a Chaos Spawn of Khorne, very good at doing damage. Again, Khorne character, you can expect that, but he also boosts up the capabilities of your Chaos Spawn of Khorne, and as we are all aware now, Chaos Spawn are actually quite viable, especially in this game. So yeah, you want this character if you're going to be running a lot of Spawn. You don't have to have these legendary characters with your particular legendary lord. They can just start supporting other characters if you so need. This is where things get a little bit more interesting for Scarbrand. You have a second legendary lord option now. This is Abrax the Bloody, with his own unique trait known as Bloody Wanderer. Every character has their own unique trait, but I feel like the legendary lord ones are usually a bit better. So this is skulls collected from the skull pile plus 20%, campaign movement range plus 35% after winning a battle, Khorne corruption plus 3, and finally skulls gained from kills plus 30% for all units in army. And obviously, since you know that skulls are so important, hey, it's always nice to have another character, isn't it? And this character himself, again, is another melee combat character, surprise, surprise, but he's really good at doing what he does. He's also pretty good at reducing the upkeep of Chaos Warriors of Khorne and Skull Crushers of Khorne, meaning that you want to focus more with mortals with this character, and it kind of makes sense because he's a mortal lord, and it gives you a reason to have different armies, especially now that you've got the Champions of Chaos DLC. You might as well have a little bit of fun with a full mortal army with the Khornate faction. And here we have the legendary characters together, so you can see how they look. They look absolutely awesome. I've got a second variant of Skulltaker there on his mount, just to show you. I've covered both Skulltaker and Sylar when they had their own independent mods, which they still do, by the way, but this united pack, having so many characters together, is just so great. It shows the level of quality with just these 3 characters, so let's start moving on to the next ones. For Nurgle, we have 2 characters. At the beginning, we have Epidemius. This is a legendary hero who is very good at supporting your characters. So the character itself is based on Epidemius, which is a character from the 8th edition army book too, and he's pretty good at just supporting your armies. He's a very strong version of, say, for example, the Plague Ridden, where it should be a herald, as the heralds back then were the hero characters, but you know what I mean. And yeah, overall, very good. Increases your research rate quite dramatically, all the way up to 30%, which, yeah, you're going to take a while to get to unless you just get him into combat as quick as possible to get some levels. But for Nurgle, where research is kind of important, especially when you want some bonuses going off, this is going to be very beneficial to you. But that's not all. Kogath also takes advantage of having another legendary lord known as Valnir the Reaper, quite a known character in the Warhammer Fantasy lore, and he's got a pretty good trait. Infections, 5 per turn, faction-wide. Nurgle Corruption, plus 3. Chance of Plague Spreading, plus 15% for Lord's Army. And Enemy Leadership, minus 8 for enemy armies and local province, so he's actually quite good at being front and center. And the character himself is rather different to Kulgath because he's not a spellcaster, but rather he's there to be a fighty lord, which you kind of need sometimes. It also adds in a nice little effect of having something so different, you know? Also, by the time of recording this video, he's got the skill line of the Heralds of Nurgle rather than that of the Chaos Lords. I'm not sure if that's going to change, but I figure it's a good thing to note. And regarding any unique skills, well, he's focused on the usual stuff that you can imagine from Nurgle, you know, buffs to your own troops, debuffs to the enemies, all that type of stuff. You can see them on screen, even being able to just be able to regenerate, which is kind of useful considering that Helmengorst is really powerful at the moment. But it's definitely nice to have a fully armored character who's able to pack a punch at the same time. While he doesn't have access to spells himself, you can easily have some Plague Ridden supporting him, so it's not really too much of an issue. And here are the characters themselves. Keep in mind that Epidemus is always mounted, whereas Valnir can get a mount later on, and they both add a lot of flavor into just having some different army compositions, because the great thing about legendary heroes is that you can use them to boost up some other lords rather than your main legendary lord, just to have a little bit more flavor. And also Valnir as a legendary hero is kind of fun. I kind of like having him with a lot of Chaos Warriors of Nurgle. We're moving to Slaanesh now with the Mask. Okay, so this is a character that I have been wanting to talk about for a while because the modders did an amazing job with the Mask. She looks absolutely amazing. We'll see a little bit later. But what she is another support character. And the way that the character focuses around is mostly on melee combat, so don't expect spells, but she's pretty good for it. Like, she's got perfect vigor, with a skill point, of course. She'll also increase the ward save for Demonettes, Aloruses, and even Herald units, too, so this is pretty good in general. And, like, she's got all these really cool abilities, which her dancers. It's something that's very important from her in the lore, and just in general, like, I'm really excited to see how she does. And like, even if you look at the basic model from the character viewer on the details section, she is stunning. She looks absolutely amazing. But the model viewer was never going to do her justice, as when you look to her in game itself. I mean, look at her. It's just so cool. It gives you vibes of the old school miniature and even the new one too. It's like a nice little mix of both. And in general, like, goddamn, yes, this is a Slaaneshi bias because Slaanesh is my favorite Chaos God, but I'm hoping that the official version of the Mask, if we ever do get her, is at least a fraction as good looking as this one. We're moving on to the Great Orthodoxy now, and yeah, we've got a legendary hero for Kostaltyn known as Grigori Medvedhesi, and this is a good character because, well, let's be honest, Kislev kind of needs help at the moment, don't they? They very much do. And this character's geared up to do a few things, mostly providing buffs against fighting the Warriors of Chaos, Demons of Chaos, and Norska. So you get a little bit of a nice little push there, and it's just very nice to get. Like, it's not massive bonuses, but it honestly does help a little bit, especially since you're fighting right next to Azazel, and then you've got loads of other things to deal with too, so yeah. I really do hope that Kislev gets some sort of DLC soon, because they desperately need a little bit of a push, but thankfully, heroes such as this will help a little bit. And this is how the character looks. It's a bit more humble than the others that you've seen, but he does the job, and that's the most important thing when you're a Kislevite. You've got no time to be very fashionable if you're going to be dealing with a lot of enemies left, right, and center. For Katerin, we have two legendary heroes, and the first one being the Golden Knight herself. So these are characters that have been mentioned in the lore, but we just don't know anything about them just yet because, yeah, you know, this is a new army book. Anyways, so melee character, very good at buffing up troops. She's there to be a defender, so she's there to protect Katerin more than anything, but she can dish out a lot of damage, and she can boost up, for example, the Ice Guard to make them get the Guardian trait, so overall, very useful. She's pretty good stat-wise too, like she's able to do a lot of damage. You can get her mounted up on a Warhorse or on a Warbear if you so wish, so it very much depends on your type of playstyle. And lastly, we have Vladimir Stormbringer, who's a support character as expected. He's a spellcaster, so he's got access to a lot of different spells. He's also got access to quite a lot of nice stuff when it comes to his own unique skill line, so stuff like extra attacks, or for example, increased research rate, which goes all the way up to 30%. Kind of useful for Kislev, because you want those buffs as fast as possible as you're dealing with so many enemies surrounding you. I'd say that it's actually quite beneficial to you. And yeah, overall, the character's very good. I quite like him. It's nice to have another legendary hero. You kind of need it with Catherine. I think Catherine suffers the most here because, you know, Frog will start attacking you very early on and then start causing loads of problems. And yeah, it's a hectic campaign. Like I said, Kislev needs DLC. And this is footage of both the characters there. The Golden Knight looks really, really cool. I really like her look. Considering it's a character that we know next to nothing about, we don't really know too much. We've seen concept art on her horse, but that's pretty much it. This is when modders can get really creative, and I think she fits really well with a Kislev army. Now, we can't go through all of Kislev without talking about Boris, who is, very much dealing with a lot of problems in the far north, so he has a bit of help with the form of Irja, who is a ranged legendary hero. He's got loads of bonuses towards doing some damage to chaos factions, and you know that's going to be quite helpful because, yeah. But he's also really good because he's a support hero too. So he's range, which is obviously quite useful, but he's also got skills like the engineers, so he can boost up ammunition for your troops, missile damage, all that type of stuff, which you're going to need whilst you're dealing with Archaon, whilst you're dealing with Demon Prince Daniel, once you're dealing with so many problems up there. Like, the fact that he's able to survive so long is just impressive. And he looks like an absolute badass in his own right. So yeah, he looks pretty cool, and you know, cool factor is a big thing, obviously. But he definitely adds in a bit more flavor, especially when you need the help there, because Archaon at the very beginning will declare war on you, and it won't take long for the other demon factions to start turning their attentions to you. We're moving on to Grand Cafe now, and let's get some cold and aloofness going with Meow Meow. So, we've got a new character here called Nanye Bonyo. I am literally very much butchering that, I am very much aware. And this is a legendary hero, which is going to add a little bit more flavor to everything going on. You see, this character is very focused, again, on range damage, and looks absolutely amazing. I'm a big fan of the character look. I think that the character looks freaking great, even in the model viewer. And yeah, so there's a few things that this character does and does well. The character is focused around range damage and got a very high range for that too, 300 to be in fact. And all the skills are focused around extra accuracy, doing some extra damage, some extra kill shot stuff. In general, again, this is going to be useful for you if you want to have it on a different character that's attacking in the Northern Chaos Waste. If you want to take the fire right to Tzeentch, if you want to take the fire right to Kolek, it increases ammunition, missile damage too for your troops, speed. If you're playing in harder difficulties and you want a little bit of extra support, this is going to be quite useful. Cafe is in a better place than Kislev, but still needs a bit of help. And next, for Zhao Ming, we have Lu Bu. No, Zhongfeng, actually, but he very much looks like Lu Bu. So this is a melee character, as expected, and what he does well. Keep in mind that there is a negative there. You do suffer negative control if he's around the area, but everything else he does very, very, very well. Like, stat-wise, he's pretty good. He's able to debuff the enemies quite heavily, even buff up some stuff. In general, like, this is a character you want in frontline, smashing pretty much anything around the way. And yeah, like, there's no complaints. I think that the character's pretty cool. The model looks great too, so yeah. And here are both the characters together. They look freaking cool. I'm a big fan of the look, especially the sharpshooter. I mean, that's just truly special, right? It just looks so cool. And I'm honestly tempted just to start up a Miao Ying campaign just for the hell of it, just because I want to use him. We're moving on to the Ogre Kingdoms, and there's a lot of legendary characters here. So, Greasus gets access to 3 different legendary heroes, and they're available from the very start, like I said. And the first one being Drog Kin Eater. So, this is a character which increases the unit mass for all units in the army, which I think is really, really good. And in general, he's melee focused, he's got a few hexes, he's able to do a lot of augments to your characters. Yeah, it's actually a really good character just to have their front line fighting around. These are ogres, that's what they do best, right? Getting in there, doing some damage, smashing, and then eating. But this is where things get a little bit interesting, where we have Katerina. This is a Bretonnian that was raised by ogres. So she's a summoner. She's actually quite good at what she does. So she's able to summon in some Noblars, she's able to summon in some Battle Kitties. Essentially, she's there as a support character more than anything else, but she'll also boost up your Noblars and in general add in a bunch of extra flavor, especially if you want something kind of different, which I think is kind of needed with the ogres, where everything is a bit samey, but for obvious reasons, right? These are the ogres. And finally for Greasus we have Brod the Blackened, which is another support character. He's there to kind of boost up your range capabilities, which is already scary enough as it is. But yeah, so he's able to focus up on increasing ammunition, increasing missile damage, even giving them more ammunition in general, some extra buffs, some extra accuracy. This is a character that if you want a Leadbelcher army, which brings me a lot of fear thinking about Leadbelcher stacks on the tabletop, this is definitely a character that you want with you, and he does everything very, very well. So yeah, another support character, which just adds a bit more flavor to the ogres. For Skrog the Sorcerer, we have two characters, the first being Horog Frostmoor. This is a Yeti character, and if you want him to be in the best effect, you'll want to download the Yeti mod 2, which is also linked in the direct page for this mod, which you can find in the description below. Anyways, so he's a good character. He does a bit of debuffs, he does a lot of attacks, he's even got access to some vortexes. This is just to give you a different type of spell lore too. So you're able to get the one of the Kizavite laws with this because, you know, frost magic kind of fits well with a Yeti, let's just be honest there. And yeah, a little bit of variety because the ogres right now don't have all their laws of magic. They actually should have a few more. So having access to this just gives you a bit of extra flavor, which is always important with these types of mods. And the flavor keeps continuing as you start seeing the other characters too, and I think this is really good for the ogres in general. But anyways, we do have Braw the Slave Lord, which was a character that was from a White Dwarf supplement, if I recall correctly, right? Very, very old, kind of forgotten in most cases. And yeah, he's a necromancer ogre, right? But rather than having the spells of necromancy and all that type of stuff, he focuses on being able to summon with his unique skill line. And I think that's actually quite special because it makes the character very radically different to what you can expect from most necromancers, right? And yeah, I think it's actually quite interesting that he was brought in because he has a lot of summons. The summons themselves are quite good, so you can have a lot to play around with. And it kind of makes sense for the necromancer to be with Skrog because they're both kind of batshit insane. So yeah. And here are all the characters together available for the ogres. You really do feel for that Bretonnian. She is very small compared to everyone else, but she does pack a punch. And all in all, they're all pretty cool. I'm just a big fan of them. I'm actually going to fire up a Grease's Goldtooth campaign after this video is done so I can just have some fun with these guys. Bringing some much needed support for Kairos is the Changeling. You see, Kairos is right now not in a very good place and he does get dogpiled on. So the Changeling is a really cool character that we're expecting as a legendary lord in the future, but modders have taken up to create him, and what you can see is that he's a spellcaster, he's very good at support, he's helping around with, say for example, the recruitment cost of the Spawn of Tzeentch, also helps with the changing of the ways. He can do a lot of different things, and you can see that he can also transform, which is something that is very known about him in the lore, and it's something that I'm really impressed on how they managed to figure out how it should be done in Total War. It's really, really impressive, because not only is the model itself for the Changeling a testament to modding, it is just absolutely beautiful, and literally just reminds me of the tabletop miniature. It's just so good. But, as you can see here, the transformation mechanic, you'll also get some new stats, right? So they'll turn into a specific thing, so you can turn them into Screamer, you can turn them into Lord of Change, a Doom Knight, a Flamer, a Chaos Spawn, but having the change of stats will also just make them a bit stronger if you need it. So, for example, if you need something hard-hitting like a Chaos Spawn, or hell, anything, it's just so impressive. Honestly, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. And then lastly, we have a final legendary hero for Archaon the Everchosen. Now, you might think Crom the Conqueror would be a good choice here, but no, the modders decided to go full meme, and I love them for this, and they decided to go for Slambo. So yeah, Slambo, the true Everchosen, finally makes an appearance in Total War Warhammer 3, where he's got loads of buffs, he's very good at melee, you can then have so many different options, like, he's absolutely amazing. And you've got access to different buffs and boons that you can get from either the Chaos Gods or become a true Everchosen. It's really cool. It's honestly really, really cool. I love the fact that they just went full meme on this because Slambo, and you know, he's such a universally loved miniature. It's just really, really cool. And he just looks like the miniature too, which is such a nice thing. You can see it on screen right now. In general, this mod brings so much fresh air to Warhammer 3, which, yes, has only just recently released, but I've always said we need more legendary heroes. We need legendary heroes because it adds in a lot more flavor. You can then dedicate armies in special ways to go about them, and it's just so cool. Some of them just look absolutely amazing. Like I said, the Changeling, the Mask, they are really, really well done. If you like modding and you want to play around with loads of legendary heroes, or you want to see other factions with legendary heroes too, you want a little bit of variety, especially now that modding is at the point where loads of modders are starting to transfer their mods over to Warhammer 3. They don't have the asset kit just yet, so we can't get custom factions, but when it comes to legendary heroes, this is absolutely amazing. You can find it down in the description below. Honestly, give it a try. Some of them are just really, really fun to use. You're not going to regret it.